Welcome back to the Anachroschism. When we left off last time, the party had a wonderful, splendid meal. At least most of them did. One of them chose not to partake, but everybody else was treated to a multiple-course meal with all sorts of splendid trappings and wonderful flavors, and had a conversation with Tessian's family, talked about their plans for what is about to happen right now, had a couple of different routes to potentially get to the next shrine in the Conatus, and now you were basically left with another half hour to an hour to kind of finalize your preparations, while Tara made sure that she was cleared to go and see how much time she had available to accompany you to what I think you guys had settled on as going through the Royal Crypt as opposed to wandering about the Cryptwood. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. So as part of that, Lady Tyrese gave you her ring with the family's crest on it. So you handed that to you, Tessian, because you're the family member. And somewhere in conversations that didn't happen on air before, but for the sake of expedience, tells you that there should be a hidden compartment at the bottom of the spiral staircase in the Royal Crypt that the ring will activate to reveal passage to where you need to go next. So, you're armed with that knowledge as well.
Sounds suitably cryptic.
Dang.
The pause was good.
Don't encourage it.
No, I think you should. Anything else you guys need to get ready or prepared in advance with this time? You can change back into your adventurer's gear and not the fancier stuff some of you had put on. All that stuff's kind of assumed. I'm not like, you didn't tell me you put on your armor. You know where you're going, but you didn't do it. You have an AC of 12.
Oops.
I think we're good. Yeah, we grab our adventuring gear. We suit up. I mean, we can always... do we plan on coming back here? Or do we need to pick up everything? That's a question for all of us,
That is a question.
Because Tessian's got teleportation. We could always just eat on out.
You could jump out. You could preserve one of them. It's kind of up to you guys.
Wouldn't you want to say goodbye to your family?
Yes, but, I mean, we do have no places to go.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with just leaving straight.
I mean, I'll admit I'd like to say goodbye, but I guess it's going to come down to how quickly we need to get on our way.
So come prepared.
It's like,
Works for me.
guess we grab everything that we can. Tessian might make some quick rounds to say goodbye to his mom and younger sister and all that. Just because they're there at the palace.
Mm-hmm.
For the keep.
Your mom essentially tells you to just be careful, that she's not entirely certain what you're going to encounter down there, but that she suspects it's going to be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And Amalia is extremely disappointed and demands you visit much more quickly next time, seeing as it's been 5, almost 6 months since the last time she saw you.
And Tessian nods and agrees. He needs to get back more often, and he's like, I could teleport now, so of course.
Do I overhear this conversation? Or is it like a private one?
I mean, I don't know. I guess
I suppose it depends if the group's going with him or if he's just going solo real quick.
He would go solo just to not bog you guys down, but if he catches her in a hallway, then you might hear it.
I would just say, to her, because we have such a good rapport at this point, I would say, oh, don't worry, we're almost done with our journey. We have this Conatus to complete, and we're almost there, and then, by all accounts, we may just go our separate ways after that.
Tessian doesn't acknowledge that, but says that sounds like maybe not true. But yeah, Tessian's like, at the very least, I will do my best to stop by whenever we get a spare chance.
And she begrudgingly acknowledges that. She's like, all right, you better. She's still smiling. It's not like there's like a blood-curdling stare. It's just...
Yeah.
A few more minutes pass after you make your rounds, gather your belongings, make sure you're prepared, and Tara returns. She, of course, is wearing exactly what she was when you last saw her at the dinner, because she was not decked out with the fancy regalia for that. She was in her armor, her breastplate, her feathered mantle. She already had the bow strapped to her back at the time, so that's not out of place either. She says, "I'm clear to accompany you, but I'm afraid I don't have the luxury of going inside. Too many fires to put out."
Oh, it's understandable, and frankly, I don't know that I'd want to drag you along. They're rather dangerous, and I don't know. The nature of these shrines has always been a bit, I don't know if what the word would be, mystic in nature. Sometimes getting there is half the battle, so to speak. I won't pretend to understand all of it, but I think in many cases it's just supposed to be those of us accompanying her directly, and then it usually provides us with someone extra, or at least it has been. And I don't know that we want to change that up too much. Things went well with Thea at the one shrine, but I don't know. I'll admit these things are a bit beyond me.
They sound complicated and a bit dangerous too, but I'm with you. If your group has made it this far, I'm not especially worried. It would have been interesting to accompany you, but at the same time, the Grey Knight matters call me, and even though there are times I don't necessarily agree with the Shadow Priests as a whole, I feel like they dabble with matters better left untouched at times. All of our brothers and sisters are in it for the right reasons. We're doing good work, and right now, with this unease across the city, I think it's more important than ever.
And we wouldn't want to deprive Black Harbor of two of its finest at this point. He's obviously including himself, because, you know.
Humble.
She gives you a knowing nod. Well, time is of the essence then. Shall we be off?
Yes, I believe everyone is ready. Everyone's ready. Look at that. No one complained.
Oh, you're actually around us, or I thought you guys.
Sure, he gathers everyone
Okay.
around. We're all good to
All
go.
right. I believe I am prepared, though
I'm sorry, I forget. Do we believe this is the last temple, right? The last shrine that we're doing?
I don't think you have any reason to know how many there are left.
There could be like 20 more. We have no idea.
Okay.
It could be, but
I mean, as far as we know, we've been getting elements from everyone. So, certainly, but like, there could be all kinds of like, you know, the element of friendship or whatever the heck's going on.
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
The element of surprise.
Yeah.
in
That's
theory,
true.
with the four elementals that are supposed to exist at Druids, this could be the last one.
Oh.
But both Aurelia and Anetta, in retrospect, those names being so similar, it was not necessarily my design.
Yeah.
Well, then again, you named your grandmother, so that's not my fault.
Yeah, that is. Well, and I didn't know about Aurelia either.
I know. Both of them have been somewhat evasive when either Lena or the group has asked them about how many legs are supposed to be. Part of the journey is sort of sorting that out for yourselves. So neither has really given you an indication about how much might be left.
Okay.
I do think, I don't remember this for positive, but the hell with it, that Aurelia hinted that at the very least you were getting up close to some kind of end.
I believe she said that as well.
After the third shrine, it seemed to imply that at the very least you were past the halfway point.
Yeah, like we're getting there.
Yeah. So it's not like, there's definitely not 20, because otherwise you'd be like, well, wait, how are we going to finish this before this week that we're supposed to have? But how many are left, you're not sure. With Tara alongside, you make your way back towards the Undercity. But rather than wandering about trying to find some kind of spatial dimension with a special market, this time you actually have a pointed destination. Tessie, have you been to the crypt before?
Probably. I imagine it's happened at least for like, this is your family and yada yada.
So maybe on a couple of occasions. It is not a place you'd really need to go frequently, but the two of you are at the very least familiar with the location of the Royal Crypt. And after making your way through the Undercity for a bit, you find your way to a different kind of crypt. You're already kind of underground as it is, but at this point there's one with a wide archway at the entry point, and 4 guards posted on the outside. Tessie and you and Tara are both familiar with the idea that this place is constantly under guard. because it essentially has all these different generations of Stormlords, and as such, they don't want people going inside and messing around with them because it's, sacred. And inside is a relatively big chamber with this big circular column in the middle that is just made out of what appears to be skulls and bones and other remains. And it essentially just goes all the way from the floor up to the ceiling. And there is a spiral staircase that weaves its way around this circular column, basically all the way up to where the ceiling would be. You can barely even make it out from this level because there's light, but it's dim, so it goes far enough up that it's difficult to see its extremities near the top.
This is suitably macabre. Is this what you're all up to in Black Harbor?
Yes, actually. We believe that we are one with the city in many ways, figuratively and literally. This is how we inter our dead.
I can't say I'm surprised, at least.
Why is it that your people choose to inter their dead in this way? Why not simply put their bodies out in the woods to decay? It doesn't seem like there is a definite benefit to keeping the remains around. If anything, you're spending time and energy in something that will ultimately do nothing but sit.
Well, I mean, if you must know, there are a number of patrons, so to speak, that the locals here, even before my family arrived, honored and revered, and they come in many shapes, sizes, and forms, and one of them is where this tradition comes from. Deshari is where the locals got their name. They believe that it's a living city of sorts. So the people are part of it, and it is a part of them. It takes care of them, and they take care of it, and that is why when they die, they become one with the city in much the way that they were in life. My family has merely adopted the tradition and embraced it, as this is our city now as well.
Besides, Crash, what better way for a necromancer to advance in the field than surrounding themselves by their very literal subject matter? But you wouldn't know anything about necromancy, would you, Tessian?
I can assure you that my extracurricular activities do not reflect that of the people and culture here at my... Anyway, to your point, Karash, in much the same way that you honor Cord, when we bury our dead, we honor Deshari.
As you like it. I don't understand, but that seems reasonable. My culture, the body is nothing once the soul is gone, so we do not care.
You are getting a bit of side-eye from Tara at this point, Tessian. She says, "Do I want to ask about these extracurricular activities?"
And he shakes his head and goes, "No, another story for another time, I'm sure. I've been dabbling in some things to assist us in our little expedition here, this Conatus. It's proven a bit more challenging than the magic I had, and I've had to expand my repertoire a bit to compensate."
For the greater good, I promise. It's basically the Black Harbor motto at this point.
Tessian side-eyes you at this point.
And I'm just watching all of this unfold.
It's a Mexican standoff of side-eye.
Oh my god.
At the base of the staircase, Tessian, make an investigation check.
Oh, good. Let's go. Investigation. $19.
Following your mother's directions, you inspect the poles, as it were, that basically are like the stakes at the start of the spiral staircase before it heads up along around the tower. the column in the center, and you're kind of like looking around for it. Shouldn't exactly say where, but within a matter of seconds, you're able to see that there is on the back side, away from where you can see it. Like you can't see it from the front, or even like looking at it from the sides. You have to kind of like look around in an awkward angle. There does appear to be a circular indentation on the back of one of those posts. It does appear to be about the size and circumference of the signet ring.
Tessian's like, well, here goes, and takes his mother's signet ring and puts it in there, and I guess just presses it up against it, sees what happens.
Nothing seems to happen.
And he turns it.
When you do so, you hear what sounds like heavy stone shifting. Just like a... And on the back side of this chamber, opposite the entrance point, it appears that a wall has slid open with a lot of debris and dust like falling off of it, little rocks and like bits of sand coming off of it, as though it has not been opened in some time. But it does slide open and reveal passage that it leads somewhere even further down below the Underdark. It's also pitch black down this chamber as you kind of just look across the room into it. There does not appear to be any source of light in it whatsoever.
Then I guess light spells and torches. We get all those ready.
Okay.
See, Tessian's got light. See, some of y'all got dark vision.
I believe I have dark vision.
Actually, you might be the only one. I think we're that party.
Yeah, she is. I'll carry a torch.
Yep.
I will stay around Karash and Tessian then.
Okay.
I want to put the torch in my teeth. It's kind of hard.
Tara draws her bow, holds it in one hand, and as you're watching her do this, she pulls back on the string, and an arrow apparates in the bow itself.
Ooh.
She just kind of holds it out ahead of her. She says, I'm happy to lead the way if you'd like. I don't want to step on anyone's toes. If you would prefer I stay towards the back, that's fine too, but I can be first in if you want.
Tessian motions to let his sister lead the way.
All right. So, with some sources of light, you start descending what appears to be there is a staircase on the inside leading downward. Pretty hastily carved out stone. It doesn't make the footsteps difficult, or like you're not worried about tripping and falling, that they're not that haphazard, but this was definitely not something that was made for regular use. It is just enough to have a foothold for each of these steps as you kind of start going down in elevation. A lot of cobwebs. And as Tara's leading from the front, she's kind of like, she's keeping the bow trained forward, but she's like using them to kind of like brush aside these cobwebs, some small, some larger. There is this kind of musty smell in the air. Again, all of it kind of just pointing to this chamber that has not been used in decades, longer. It's unclear. None of you have exactly the knowledge to know that off the top of your head, but you can definitely tell like the air is stale and everything here is just kind of like it has not been disrupted in a long time. Yeah. At some point, as you're going down for what feels like 15-20 minutes, the staircase is just weaving along this kind of thin path. It's wide enough that you can fit maybe too wide. It's not like it's cramped, but again, it's not a big entryway by any means. She eventually turns back and says, is it always like this? Is it often these kind of secluded locations? Is it meant to be places that people don't find? I'm just curious if this is different than usual. I haven't had a chance to experience this before.
Well, I mean, there was one time it was on I would say at least a findable path, but there were magical barriers put in place that wouldn't allow anyone to enter except Lena. So even when it is not hidden in secret compartments and underground, it's still completely inaccessible.
Interesting.
There's normally more light than this. That's a difference.
This is true. This is easily the first time we've had to go into such a subterranean path to get there.
But they all have their gimmick. The more they're different, the more they stay the same.
It
That's
is
not an
reasonable.
insult to the DM. That's just Isaac being it.
Oh. Disadvantage the rest of the day.
It is reasonable to assume that the Conatus, or the creators of it, whoever that may be, did not want anyone who did not belong wandering in, or worse, someone with enough power to possibly leech whatever energies may exist inside these temples off into their own ill will.
Makes
Who
sense.
did create the Conatus? We actually pause to ask this question. We know we know what it is. We know, for the most part, why we're doing it. Who exactly came to this city and carved out these trials?
Tessian's just like, I'll admit I'd like to know that myself, but unless Lena's discovered something in the meantime, or since we last checked, so as far as we know, it's just old.
Is that bad? We don't even know why we... I mean, we know why, but we don't know much about this great journey that we've undertaken.
Does the who matter though if we know the why?
I
And it's for the
suppose
greater
not, but
good.
I'd like to know more about...
We
the more
presume the
details,
greater
the better
good.
for me.
It is fair to assume that if your family has been doing this for many generations, that it is at least a vague perception that it is for the best, but we genuinely have no idea if this is for the good or not. How long has it been since anyone actually completed the Conatus?
Centuries. You know the answer to that, Lana.
I couldn't remember though.
Yeah.
Oh,
Aurelia
I thought, yeah.
was
Aurelia was the last one to complete it.
400 to 450 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and we've been talking to Aurelia, so now.
Yes.
God.
It's okay.
Hey,
Crash is...
Intelligence stat changes, but the things stay the same.
I have a weird memory for weird details. That apparently, like, the reason we're here, not one of them. Go
Everybody
figure.
make me a perception check, please.
Oh, God.
Oh, I guess I need to make one for Tara.
As much as I'd like to know the answer to that question, Isaac, I must say, sometimes you have to simply go through the motions to get the answers you want.
And Lena, your grandmother did say at one point, I think in your first conversation with her, that she would be happy to talk more on it once you had completed it, but there were certain details that were not meant to be available to you until after the journey's completion.
Ah, that makes
The number of
sense.
shrines was part of that, but there were other parts as well that she could not speak on because part of the journey was overcoming these trials and not having that information at your disposal.
Makes
Just
sense.
color me concerned about the whole thing is all I'm saying.
You're
Just a bit.
You're concerned about everything.
Well, that's fair.
and that's
but
why we love you.
most
but
of it has been justified to this point. I'd like to remind you all here.
of course.
Not to mention, we all look like a bunch of amateurs in front of Tara. Tara?
Tara.
Tara. Asking why it is we're going on the thing that we're already neck deep in.
Here's how you can remember it, and again, I've pulled from plenty of the things I love for inspiration. It rhymes with Laura.
Rhymes with Lara Croft. I may have been playing too.
Tara Loft.
Tara Loft.
Her father is Ducroft for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
I may have been playing a lot of Tomb Raider when I did some of this.
Yeah, that also tells you how long it's been since he first crafted this document.
A long time. Yeah, yeah.
19 perception. by the
19?
way. Yeah.
18.
Three!
Oh, Crash.
Hey, I beat you at 4.
And Tara has a 9. She rolled a 6.
I'm pondering the
Tessie
possible
Crash, like-
morality.
Who did make this?
Existential crisis. Oh, shit.
Tessian's over here just wondering, like, you know, is it older than my family? Did my family work with them at one point? Like,
That's kind of why I started going down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As you continue to make your way downward, it's kind of off-putting the longer this goes. I mean, it's been almost a half an hour now. You've been making small talk, but also kind of keeping aware of your surroundings. And there's very little that's changing. There's no waypoints, no things that'll let you know how far you've come, how far is left to go. No sign that there's been a passage of any sort, really. No, you're not doubling back on cobwebs you've passed through. It's not like a magical loop like a Mario 64 staircase happening here. But it's still kind of just unsettling to just be kind of going further and further into the underground without any idea about how deep you've gone, how far is left to go, where you are in relation to where you started, because it's been kind of weaving its way about as you've been descending. The one thing that stands out too, that was Isaac and Lena who had the 19 and 18. What stands out is actually the absence of sound. You feel like you're pretty attuned to your senses as you continue to descend. You're almost thinking like, shouldn't we be hearing like small insects like clattering about? And we saw some spider webs and cobwebs. Shouldn't we be hearing something, some sort of creature, insect life, animals, anything? But it's almost conspicuous in its absence. It also adds that unsettling feeling because you're supposedly heading to this giant tree, and yet everything about this seems unnatural.
So I would tell Karash, Karash, it seems unnaturally quiet. Could just be all of the dead and necrotic energy around, but is there some sort of magic or something dampening the sound and senses coming off this area? Chalk it up to my paranoia. It just doesn't feel right.
I recently had to swap out one of my spells for some paranoid crazy mofo, so let me check and make sure I have detect magic. Oh, I do! Look at that. Okay. Subtle. I did not notice, but I understand now what you mean. Give me one moment, and
if you really
I'm
listen,
casting.
You'll notice that you'll hear nothing at all.
I hear the chirping of an irritating insect. I don't know what you're talking about. Mumble. Yeah. I'm casting it. So within 30 feet, anything magic, what it is.
10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's convenient because you had about 10 more minutes as you continue walking. After Crash activates this, just to get a better sense of what's around. Another about 10 minutes, turns out. The staircase finally ends. It switches to a more earthen path that is still descending slightly, but the incline is much less steep than before. And after this 45 almost minute stretch of just this kind of almost claustrophobic hallway, it finally starts to open up. And when it does, it opens up in a big way. As you look ahead of you, and Karash, the end of this, as your spell expires, at least on this casting of it, you do not detect any magical sources along the way as you open up into what appears to be a vast underground meadow. And inside of it is plant life. All sorts of greenish purple shrubs giving off a faint, almost effervescent glow. And large, towering trees, bigger than almost any you've seen on the continent of Aramida at this point, on the exterior, on the surface. Vines just kind of running helter-skelter across the ground. And further up ahead, with the plant life seemingly glowing, there's at least enough light to at least light up the chamber with dim light. Those trees around you are massive. Think like redwoods. There is a tree in the center of this meadow that puts those trees to shame. From this distance, it looks bigger than the entire castle area of Waychester.
Whoa.
A trunk thousands of feet in circumference. It's wide enough that you can't even make out where it ends and curves back from this distance. It just engulfs everything forward. It's about 200 feet ahead of you yet. But you look up and its canopy just covers everything as far as you can see.
This is some HP Lovecraft shit right here. It really is. Chris, is it to the point where, like, there's no way that it could actually be here based on where we traveled, or like, does it seem okay? Like, would we have almost had to like go through like a planar shift or something to allow for this size in this room, or does it kind of make sense with how far we've been walking?
Make I'd say a nature or a history check. I'll allow you to do either one.
So I would actually have the same question.
Anybody who would like to
Yeah.
may do either of those checks, not both. But
Cool.
pick your favorite.
I will do. Wait, what was it? Nature or history?
Nature or history.
Okay, I'm gonna do.
What are you doing?
I'm doing nature because that's something I'm
Yeah,
better
I'm
at.
doing history.
19 history.
Oh God, I crit failed.
Okay, all right. It is like necrotic fields of
So
weird
Lena,
shrubs.
Lena, I will say, you do feel this slight tugging, this familiar feeling of like the direction you're supposed to go. That seems to be pulling you directly towards the giant tree.
Okay.
And it seems like it's not actually pulling you or like compelling you to move forward, but it's picked up enough as you enter this meadow that you're kind of like distracted and not really paying attention to what else is around.
Yeah, that's fair.
Hence natural one.
Yes.
So what else do we have here? Sorry.
Let's see. Testing's got a 13 history.
Okay.
19.
19 history, and then a crit 24 nature from Crash.
What's up, nature
Crash,
bitches?
doing work.
What's up, nature?
So Tessian and Isaac, it does stand to reason that this could exist on this plane. You're not
Okay.
entirely positive. You've only switched planes a couple of times before to where you're not necessarily familiar with the feeling that might happen if you were to step through one abruptly. But given the amount that you traveled to get here and how far underground you went from what was already underground, it does stand to reason that this could just be here. It doesn't eliminate the possibility that it could exist on a different plane somehow, but at the very least, it doesn't seem like, well, we walked 5 feet and now there's a 6,000-foot tall tree. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Okay, it's not physically impossible.
Correct.
Okay.
It stands to reason that you descended enough to where this could be possible, yes.
Okay.
Non-Euclidean geometry.
Karash, in addition to that, this does appear to be natural. As strange as it is, and you're not necessarily familiar with, the plant life in particular that's here, or why plants could grow like this underground, or why they're glowing. There is this kind of like calming sense to it, as though you were in a forest or a meadow among what would be like regular nature. You're not necessarily familiar with this on a regular basis, but still just kind of taking a moment to take in your surroundings. It does feel as though this isn't like a magical creation of sorts. This isn't like an illusion. It feels as though you're in a forest, and you do actually hear some faint birds chirping at this point, and what sounds like different animals clattering about somewhere in the distance, just like quietly.
And I wasn't detecting any magic in the hallways down either.
Correct.
Oh, wow.
You also do get the sense, however, because you're familiar with your detect magic spell and like things that are holy, things that are not at this point, having worshipped Cord for a few years now, that it does seem like something is off here. The energy is positive overall, but you do kind of just sense like it's sort of akin to what they were talking about with the city as a whole, because you were there for one of those conversations. You overheard them talking about how something just seemed unsettled, disturbed in some way, off kilter. It's difficult to put your finger on it because this isn't really your realm of expertise, but the fact that you pick up on it at all is still telling that there might be something here that is not the way it should be.
Is anybody else getting any more information?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. The surroundings are not magical in nature, but it does appear that everything that is growing down here is normal, as though it should be here, though there is something wrong with this. There's something else that is causing some kind of, I don't know, ill ease in the air.
Tessin's just sort of taking it in, and he's just sort of like, I never would have imagined anything like this. I know we have places to be, but Thea's going to kill me if I don't get some sort of drawing of the things that live here. And he's actually kind of looking for animals or something that he can get a view of now that we hear insects and other things.
I wonder if she'd even believe you. I was not expecting anything like this.
If anything, Tessin's like, I at least have to get samples of some of this. assuming I should, and he kind of looks to Lena like, do I touch this or do I not? Like, are the park rangers going to show up because I stole a rock from the national park, or like?
Well, I don't know. I'm concerned about what Karash said about something not feeling right. I wonder if maybe if we complete the shrine first, that maybe that might level out the energy, get rid of the negative energy that's here, and then maybe we could take samples, get sketches. I don't know. I do feel a pull towards the giant tree over there. I think we're close.
Well, then I suppose we have our destination and we shouldn't dally. Batesian's definitely looking at everything.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, Tessie, and I agree with you, it would be interesting to look around some more and spend some time. This is beyond anything that I would have imagined would be able to grow underground, but if I am sensing ill ease, and we know this place is only really welcoming to Lena and anyone she is with, it's entirely possible that we would be better suited to complete this temple and then leave with the knowledge that at least the Conatus itself has accepted her. And besides, if we all die inside, it won't matter if we took them beforehand. So,
true enough, I suppose. It's just, this is an ecosystem that no one has seen or touched in how centuries at this point, you have to imagine. What if we could bring some of these trees back up to the surface? Who knows where they could grow? Perhaps only here, but there might be other places underground that could use some of this foliage, this growth, even the smaller plants, insects, animals.
In fairness, there is always the chance. There's a very singular island not far from where I grew up, which had the odd misfortune of encountering a shipwreck at some point long ago in its life. And the entire island was overrun with a small rat-like creature. And it virtually destroyed the entire ecosystem of that island. The only reason that it still sustains any life whatsoever is birds occasionally make the ill choice of nesting there, which the rats enjoy quite thoroughly. But beyond that, it's quite destroyed. It might not be worth our time or our effort if we are not certain and safe that the anything we bring back to the surface will not cause equal damage to the surrounding of your city.
Well, I suppose that is a fair concern, but at the very least, then it would warrant some sort of study. We should at least see.
Yes, absolutely.
Why
but
have we
careful.
never heard about this before? What about the Conatus would have made even sharing this information so secretive?
It's one of the many reasons I'd like to get my hands on some of these plants. I actually don't know.
I don't know why today, why now, but there's just a lot about this journey that is giving me a sense of foreboding. It's making me uneasy.
To be fair, that may just be Black Harbor itself.
Oh. Let's say it's a mix of things for now.
The entire journey that we have been on to this point has also been overshadowed with the very real possibility of your father's doppelganger trying to destroy our dimension, or at least cause a massive war. So, there's that.
It just never occurred to me, when we're in a fire realm and there's fire everywhere, that's fine. That makes sense. There's no big secret there. It really strikes me that I've never heard of this area. Even Tessian of Black Harbor doesn't know that this exists right under his nose. Why the secrets?
Black Harbor seems to be nothing but secrets.
As someone who grew up here, I agree with Karash.
Sure, but it's, in a way, not your secret to keep. What about the people who have done the Conatus? If they succeeded, and not all have, they've been through here.
A question for Aurelia, I suppose.
Oh, I have questions for her, all right.
I mean, I guess at that we keep moving on to the big tree.
It's interesting because as you walk forward, that central tree just engulfs your view of everything else. I mean, it already does just as you entered the chamber. But at this point, as you're starting to walk towards it and closing this gap, you have to basically look sideways or backwards to no longer have it be in your field of vision. Pieces of bark, which is black, not like a sickly black, just a very dark brown, almost black color. Pieces of bark could like fall on you and crush the whole group. Like they look like they are thick, wide swaths of bark on the exterior of this tree. As far up as you can see, there do appear to be leaves up in the canopy. Like it's a tree. It has life to it. It's not just like a trunk with branches, but no sprouts or saplings that are coming off of it. And as you're walking through, you see a couple other things too, like some smaller versions of these trees. And smaller, of course, still puts them at a relative size to regular sized trees on the exterior of Aramea that you've seen in different parts of your travels. Some of the more wooded areas, especially on the eastern side of the continent. Tessian, because you're looking for this in particular, you also, let's say it's just your passive perception, can see there are what you would expect to be creatures of the forest down here.
Okay.
They are slightly different. There's a squirrel with elongated claws. There is a bird with a more jagged, hooked beak. There is what looks to be like a really small fox at one point. They're all kind of like keeping their distance and just watching. They seem uncertain about these new visitors, and again, given your journey down here, you would suspect they haven't seen folks like you in quite some time. The fox eventually kind of like bares its teeth, and they're sharper, more jagged, and then it just kind of runs off somewhere.
Oh my god, I could animal friendship all of these animals.
Tessian does comment on some of the, he's like, some of the more, I would say, strange features on these creatures down here. They do remind me of a lot of the sea life around Black Harbor itself. It tends to be a bit more, dangerous in its own way. I wonder if the two are related.
Well, where magic is concerned, there is always some twisting of the environment, whether towards good or ill. Certainly we've experienced that much in our journeys with the various temples we've attended to. Shrines. Oh, God.
It's
Words.
interesting, though. This is a natural place, as you say. Druids, one would assume, attended to it. So I wonder what their influence has done to the region that my people call home.
Yeah. It is a question then. Was the magic that does the twisting something which pre-existed, or did the druids bring it with them and mold this area into something else for their own purposes?
Indeed.
Lena, do you know anything of the druids who were once in this area?
Chris, do I know anything?
Unless you're going to tell me that you were really studying a lot of the history of the Sowenwood in your time back there.
I mean, I'm sure I had history courses that I may or may not have paid attention to super closely.
So you're saying a history check with disadvantage?
Yeah,
That sounds about right.
Let's do that, I think. That seems fitting.
For your inattention.
Double
to class.
20s, double 20s, double 20s.
Whoop.
9.
Close.
This sounds vaguely familiar, like something you heard in one of your studies at one point, but other than knowing that the Conatus supposedly stretches back thousands of years, and obviously that your people's lifespans also assist in the believability of the fact that people might have stewarded this for a long period of time, there's nothing in particular about the origins of the Conatus or this particular area that rings a bell.
I say as much, basically.
As you guys approach this tree, there is a massive, almost 50-foot by 50-foot opening in the side of it. Appears it wasn't like it was carved It seems to have been formed naturally. And the tree says, "In the vast, deep forest of Hyrule."
I was like, is the tree actually talking right now?
No, it's not talking. It's not the fucking Deku tree.
I
And it's
don't know,
old
man.
English. Get out of here, great Deku tree. I don't have time for your bullshit.
Man.
Come in my mouth, Link. Wait, what?